I am a collector of art books. Art is such a huge component of a game. If the art looks interesting, it pulls me in. Alternatively, I have straight up not even looked at games because of their less appealing art style, even if the game ends up being pretty good. I've compiled a list of JRPGs and JRPG artists with a jaw-dropping and unique art style. But before I dazzle you with such information, be sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment of your favorite JRPG artists. And shout out to my Patreon, which you should totally be a part of, which helped me decide what list videos to do on the channel. Now, on to number 12. I'm not really an enjoyer of this series anymore, I just feel like I've grown out of it, but I do enjoy the hype around these games. Pokemon. Personally, red, blue, and yellow, but silver is my favorite. Pokemon is one of the largest media franchises in the world, to the point where even normies know it. Even though the art style has changed over the years, Pokemon never stopped being recognizable. Even if it's Pikachu losing a few pounds, or Bulbasaur straight up changing colors, even their trainers go through an evolution, so to speak. Some sporting a natural glow up, others I didn't know they were the same character. And shout out to the original artist Ken Sugimori. He is the designer of most of the original 150. Where Pokemon really shines to me is not only the new Pokemon designs, whether it be game, the cards, or the anime, but the gym leaders. I think Pokemon constantly serves in this regard. If there are two things I care about in Pokemon nowadays are the starters and the gym leader designs. Anything in between, I'm like, whatever. I remember when Nessa took the world by storm. Not only is she a deep, dark-skinned beauty, but look at the floaties on her sandals. Illustrator Take crushed it with her design, along with Piers, Alistair, and Adaman. I think a key thing I look forward to is being able to tell what kind of trainer type they are based on their fit. And that's something Pokemon has gotten better with. Take Lieutenant Surge. I think his name is more of a giveaway than his original design. Otherwise, he kinda looks like Guile's brother. And don't tell me this lightning patch is enough. I mean, it is, but it's not very exciting. Like Iona or Alessia, who scream electric with bright yellows. Iona has freaking Magnemites in her hair, while Alessia's hair has got the zigzags of lightning, and a space headset with horns with the colors of plus and minus. Pokemon gym leaders serve a range of looks, ages, shapes, and colors. It's always exciting to meet the next gym leader and look how they wear their type. Number 11! This style has a lot of prestige, and for me, nostalgia. This style is magical, boasting simplicity and complexity. This style is magical, boasting simplicity and complexity. Known to do both is Studio Ghibli. Ni no Kuni, the game Studio Ghibli was involved with. And yes, I'm aware Ni no Kuni 2 did have some former members of Ghibli at the helm. When I first feasted my eyes on Ni no Kuni, it was everything I ever wanted. I distinctly remember popping it into my PS3 on Mother's Day, terrible choice by the way. It was the first game I ever played on a flat screen TV. I was enchanted, seeing the iconic Ghibli style molded into 3D figures. Yoshiyuki Momose, director of animation at Studio Ghibli, designed the storyboards for Ni no Kuni's animated sequences, something Ni no Kuni 2, by the way, was severely lacking. Level 5 CEO Akihiko Hino also said Ghibli films have a touch of warmth to them, and I couldn't agree more. When I look at Ni no Kuni, I see warm tones and inviting lands, despite some of them being perilous. One of Momose's goals was to make it feel like you weren't playing a game, but playing an animated film and influencing the film's direction. It was genuinely surprising to me that one of Level 5's greatest challenges was capturing Studio Ghibli's signature hand-drawn look and turning it 3D. For what it's worth, all the blood, sweat, and tears Level 5 shed for this game led to a stunning product with the most beautiful art. Number 10. Admittedly, I haven't played many of this developer's games, but if one thing's for certain, I'll always look at them. Vanillaware. I'm talking Odin Sphere, Grim Grimoire, Muramasa the Demon Blade, Unicorn Overlord, 13 Sentinels, Dragon's Crown. Out of the ones mentioned, I've only played 13 Sentinels and Dragon's Crown, and I'd say I'm more of a 13 Sentinels girl. But I feel like when I look at any of these games, I'm hit with such majesty. I know I'm supposed to be listing a game in particular, but considering they all have more or less the same style and different artists, I'm counting it as Vanillaware as a whole. I think the best way to describe Vanillaware's signature art style is a moving painting. Somehow stiff, but not. You move through these gorgeous backdrops as uniquely designed characters, and there's no bad frame. Something else interesting is the art style essentially is the graphics. It's art in motion, where other games it's clearly the drawn art translated into 3D models. Not with Vanillaware games, they're one and the same. Number 9. This game had great original art. It was unique, it was distinct. I love the use of heavy shading, and then it got remastered and botched all of that. Radiant Historia, the original released in 2011 for the DS, a game about changing the future of a decaying planet all while war is breaking out by crossing between two timelines. And let me also add, it has one of the greatest battle systems of all time. The artist responsible for these beautiful illustrations is Hiroshi Konishi. I love his use of line weight and the heavy use of shading. It has a bit of a rugged look to it. Then in 2018, Radiant Historia Perfect Chronology came out for the 3DS. It is an enhanced remake. While exciting, I was less than enthused to see they changed the art, done by Masaki Hiroka. You may know his art by his first published game, Castlevania Order of Ecclesia, released in 2008. Some of the units in Fire Emblem Heroes or Suikoden Tierkreis, which honestly looks like the new art for Radiant Historia Perfect Chronology. Now, I've complained about this before, and I shall complain about it again. This is one of the biggest missteps of the remaster. No shade to Masaki Hiroka, make no mistake, his art is great in its own right, but something about the original was uniquely Radiant Historia. It sucks to see a distinct art style smoothened out into a banalized moe shadow of itself. Even if we got the added bells and whistles of changing expressions, I still would have taken the original art. Also, a little extra peeved because not only did they change the art of the princess, but her design. For no reason, by the way. How many pixie-cut haired princesses do you know? Not many. The good news is, well, before the eShop shut down, was you could get the classic art DLC pack for $250. Not a terrible price. And it would change all the portrait art back to the original. However, it doesn't change the character artwork in the menus. Get what you pay for, I guess. So, if you can get your hands on the original Radiant Historia, I think you're in for some beautiful art. Number 8. This is another list of games versus just one. Octopath Traveler 1 and 2, Dragon Quest Remake 1, 2, and 3, Triangle Strategy, Live Alive Remake. This guy's art is everywhere. Naoki Ikushima has taken over games in the HD 2D art style. I doubt anyone watching hasn't seen his artwork before. Every game he's worked on that I've played, I've enjoyed. If I had to pick my favorite, I've gotta say Live Alive. I feel like I owe Bravely Default and Octopath an apology for saying that. He's not even the original artist of Live Alive. Anyways, his artwork is very distinct, heavily utilizing browns and beiges. You'll notice most of his works have to do with fantasy. I think this works well with his browns and beiges because it makes me feel like I'm looking at this old parchment paper. And while I may enjoy it, it seems to be one of his most common criticisms. Some folks aren't a fan and they're getting bored with the muddy tones. But he has proven many times that he knows how to make a piece pop with color. He typically works with pastels and watercolor, creating masterful mixed media art. I also love the backgrounds he draws. I think it's slept on how much a background can tell of a character. It's doing something that always adds to the main character while not taking away from them as the centerpiece. And I think his designs on their own stand well to get a sense of that character, so it's just an added bonus. I even like the process, the sketching and the use of cross-hatching. I love how passionate he is, creating many celebratory pieces of games he's worked on. I am always looking forward to his next projects. Number 7. And speaking of Naoki Ikushima and his projects, his latest one, Dragon Quest HD 2D Remake, it would be downright disrespectful for me not to mention one of the godfathers of modern anime. Yes, the legendary, the iconic, the late but great Akira Toriyama. Rest in peace. It is no understatement the many lives he's touched through his art, his cartoony style, ripped men, and spiky-haired protagonists. His style is recognized to those even outside the realm of anime and gaming. Without him, many other manga wouldn't have come to fruition. As a 90s baby, I too was there after school catching Dragon Ball. Although admittedly I was more of a Sailor Moon girl, his work extends past anime but into video games. One of the most iconic and beloved being Chrono Trigger, giving us not only a well-designed cast from across time, but seeing them on their iconic adventure. I love their simplistic design, some with a standard small frame and others bulky. Also, Blue Dragon, a game I haven't played but naturally was drawn to it by the art style. I remember seeing it as a kid, someone roughly my age looking powerful with a mighty blue dragon behind him. I think the biggest reason why I didn't get it was because it was an Xbox exclusive, and your girl didn't do Xbox. Hell, I barely do so now. But because I've grown, I think I'd be willing to give it a shake now. And of course, his biggest franchise he's worked on, Dragon Warrior, now known as Dragon Quest. He's worked on every installment until his unfortunate passing. His work is timeless. The enemies from the original Dragon Warrior are still seen in current Dragon Quest games. My favorite games he's worked on are Dragon Quest V and Dragon Quest VIII. Now, while he had taken many under his wing, the only thing we know for sure is regarding Dragon Ball Super is handled by Toyo Taro. I am curious to know the future of Dragon Quest art. I'm sure they already have folks in place, but my main concern is not if they can find people to replicate his style, but his boundless creativity. Number 6. It's really difficult for me to say who's my favorite artist of all time. I like different artists for different reasons. But if this video was specifically on character game designers, my man Kimihiko Fujisaka would be number 1. He is responsible for the art of Drakengard 1, 2, 3, Nier Replicant, did a little work for Fire Emblem Heroes. His most recent work is the character designer of Voice of Cards, but my favorite works come from a game that is no longer playable, and that is the mobile RPG Terra Battle. This man's character designs are unmatched. Obviously, it's an RPG with a gacha game mechanic involved, and I feel like a lot of gacha games put the sexy front and center. Skimpy / semi-revealing outfits and whatnot. And hey, there's nothing wrong with that. You like what you like, but for me, it was his unmatched imagination he had with his designs. Some of them range from classy, but still sexy, from weird woman spouting from a... So there's this rosy candy cane looking woman, his take on Apollo, a lizard beast man scholar, a robot spider girl, to an old man in whatever kind of suit this is. Yes, some of his designs are busy, but this is one of the few cases where I would make an exception. It's more to look at, to take in, to admire. Your characters could evolve. For example, Pupropu, the Hope, to Pupropu, the Miraculous. And usually their third design, it's more of their avatar changes rather than the main character of the piece, and we get Puropu the Wizard. And yes, while I want to play Voice of Cards, I was hoping and waiting for a physical release, but it has yet to come. For the time being, I'm so glad he's kept his wild imagination intact for these designs. Whatever's in his mind, he's gonna make it happen. I have never seen such boundless, unhinged creativity than from the mind of Kimihiko Fujisaka. Number 5. I love this series, and I love the art behind it. Breath of Fire, especially the work of Tatsuya Yoshikawa. Now, his works aren't limited to Breath of Fire, because he's also worked on Devil May Cry and the Mega Man X games. For the first Breath of Fire, he was delegated to in-game graphics. Then Breath of Fire 2, we start cooking, as he's the character designer. And then there's a special place in my heart for the classic 90s look, the eyes especially. His work seemed to be mixed media, but it screams color pencil and marker, mainly because of the hair. There seems to be a hint of graininess to it, and you know, maybe there's even some watercolor. Anyways, Yoshikawa's art is so vibrant and colorful, I just adore the character designs, and his way of making them all different, from hair color, body shape, different races. Breath of Fire in general, I think, has some of the most interesting looking cast, and while you do get a sense of what they're about, it leaves you wanting to know more. And now fast forward to Breath of Fire 3, and this is where his art really began peaking for me. And this is my favorite game he's worked on, dare I say one of my favorite JRPGs of all time. His vivid colors never go away, but his art took a more simplistic turn, and I adore simple art. Make no mistake, details are also appreciated, but it shows that you don't have to spend hours detailing an emblem or a belt buckle, the embroidery on clothing to make an interesting character. I'm also a fan of the angular art, the pointed hair, the dragons seem to be more sharp. Breath of Fire 4 continued this trend, and I'd say he found a good balance of detail and simplicity. On a side note, I really do love how he draws faces. It's strange, but he has a good face shape variety. Circular, oval, male oval, don't ask me what I mean by that. It's just the male faces have a unique oval shape, but more masculine. Don't question me, damn it. You know what it is? I like a strong chin on my male characters. And he was in charge of the graphics in Breath of Fire 4, which by the way, I'd make an argument that this might be the most beautiful pixel artistry I've ever seen. Don't get me wrong, HE2D style or Eastward gives it a run for its money, but I haven't seen anything as silky smooth as Breath of Fire 4's graphics. And while I've never played Breath of Fire 5, Dragon Quarter's art is just as beautiful as 3 and 4. I'm such a huge fan of his works, gaming or otherwise, and I would love if he returned for Breath of Fire 6. A real Breath of Fire 6. Don't you dare tell me this is Breath of Fire 6. Number 4. Another legend in the gaming world. Yoshitaka Amano, the artist of Final Fantasy. He was the character designer of earlier Final Fantasies, taking a step down after Final Fantasy VI, and instead designed promotional and character artwork for the following games. However, he has designed every mainline Final Fantasy's logo, which is a little sad because his style is beautifully chaotic. There's so much to look at. His love of accessories is prevalent in all of his artwork, adding beads, charms, extra embroideries. Sometimes the illustration is vastly different from the final product. Take Final Fantasy IX's Ico. I would have taken Little Miss Green with envy over peeled banana balloon pants, but what do I know? His style is heavily influenced by ukiyo-e art, which is incredibly popular through the 17th and 19th centuries. I'm sure you've seen it, but it's woodblock printmaking art. It's actually really fascinating. You ink up a wooden board, press paper on it, and boom, it transfers to the paper. It sounds simple enough until you realize there are multiple layers and you have to perfectly set the paper down on a different block to add the next layer. Repeat this process multiple times and voila, you have a finished product. Now obviously that's not his method, but the inspiration is there. I love that he took from a unique aspect of Japanese culture, and it will now forever live within Final Fantasy. And one last thing, what a suitable artist for this franchise, right? Because I think his characters are so fantastical. They just don't do it like Amano, man. Like, I like Final Fantasy 16, but you know, where's all the color? Where's all the weird yet attractive designs? Come back, Amano. We need you more than number 3. I'm just kidding, I can't do number 3 like that, considering he's been my favorite artist for the longest time, until number 1 came along. Artist turned director, and still artist, the great and sort of infamous Tetsuya Nomura, most famous for his work in Kingdom Hearts, but he's worked on a plethora of other games as the character designer or illustrator. The World Ends With You, Parasite Eve, Final Fantasy 7, 8, 10, The Bouncer. He's the man responsible for all the zippers and I love it. I know what attracts me to his art too, it's how angular it is. His lines are sharp in The World Ends With You's case, the outlines are thick, and I love how his style shifts depending on the piece. I enjoy a man of many styles, because we have some of his more sketchy work, where his coloring is different, softer. But when we look at Final Fantasy VII Remake, he switches it up to realism, and yet his style still comes through. You look at this piece and think, yep, Tetsuya did it, versus Cloud in Dissidia. The style is slightly more cartoony, but still keeps the angles I adore so much. Look at the shading of his pants, the tips of his fingers don't round, but square off. The hair, and of course the bold lines. And what really warms my soul is seeing where he started, looking at the original Cloud. His lines are softer, he actually had a tad more curvature. Take a look at Cloud's big spike. On his hair, you nasty. It's not a straight line. It's curved. I simply adore his character designs. I love how instantly recognizable his work is, and the games he's worked on has some of my favorite character designs to this day. My favorite games of his from an artist's perspective has to be Parasite Eve, The World Ends With You, Kingdom Hearts 2, and Final Fantasy X. Number 2, woo! Style, versatility. When this developer's name is shown on screen, everybody loses their minds. Especially this year, they've been cooking. Persona, Catherine, Persona Q, Persona dancing games, Persona mobile games, and Metaphor ReFantazio. All games with fantastic art done by Shigenori Soejima. I don't know where to start with this man. I guess we can start where I first discovered him in Persona 4 Golden. One of the greatest games of all time, great characters with great designs. I dare to say he created the designs to the best cast in RPG history. Yeah, I said it. And this cast is so bright and loud, so imagine my shock when my second game of his, Persona 3 FES, took a much darker turn. Deep blues and almost sort of a blurred effect. It looked like the school's halls were haunted, right? It looks unsettling and frankly like horror games compared to some of his other works. But at the same time, flip the script and his Persona 5 piece that uses the same technique we saw with Persona 3's official art. He's just so damn talented. And then we fast forward to Metaphor and wow, he has crushed it with the box art. His style shifts based on, well, what is needed. In Metaphor, they were giving Renaissance and some of his illustrations look like paintings. I just think he's so talented and I'm so grateful that my number 1 gave him a shot. Number 1! This man is the GOAT baby, the GOAT. Practically the granddaddy of SMT, Persona 1, Persona 2, even though those are mostly the demon designs. This man gave Shigenori an in into the industry after being impressed by his art. Kazuma Kaneko isn't my number 1 solely because of his art. Weird thing to say, I know, but it's his journey and how it inspires my own. I think one thing I really love as an amateur artist is simplicity. If you look at Kaneko's earlier work, some of them are bangers and others are strangely amateur. And I don't say this as an insult. In fact, I find it really inspiring that someone at this level, at the time, could create something so amazing. While some of his demon designs look complicated and detailed, certain demons look amateurs, their toes being melded together, or simplistic clothing. I had this terrible idea that in order to be successful, you had to be flawless, perfect, your art had to be on point. And yes, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but feet are one of the hardest things to draw, and if you could have told me I could have made it as an artist without knowing how to draw the best feet, shit, your girl might have have been a full-fledged artist by now. His art wasn't perfect or masterpieces, but they didn't have to be. Kaneko I praise not only for his talent in art, but with his creativity. Anyone could learn how to draw quote-unquote correctly, the fundamentals if you will. But to think of creative and strange ways to show established mythical creatures is another talent of its own. I mean, look no further than Diana, the Roman equivalent of Greek's Artemis, goddess of the hunt, childbirth, and the moon. Could he have drawn a simple woman with a bow, maybe holding the hand of a child, or pregnant? No, this man was like mammary glands. Fun fact, did you know that Kaneko went back and forth with Nintendo about his designs, specifically the more sexualized ones? Certain demons were naked, and he would have to explain why it was weird for them not to be naked. The compromise seemed to be removing the nipple, and that, children, is why we have two versions of Diana. And while we're on the topic of sexual organs, I really do love that Kaneko is about equality. While there are many depictions of boobs and vaginas, he also gives the ladies what they want, which are phallic-faced creatures and dick-riding chariots. There are so many games with amazing art, but I know anytime I'm playing a game that Kaneko was the lead on, I expect peak designs, with humanoids with signature black upper lips. Every game I've played that he's worked on, I pretty much liked, save for Strange Journey, but rest assured, the art wasn't the problem. And I am sure I missed plenty of games with amazing art styles, so I would love to hear in the comments what games you love with amazing art styles. Check out my reviews of Breath of Fire and Nocturne here, and be sure to like and subscribe. Until next time, mwah!